All right, I know I'm about like a month late with this, but I'm surprised I never made a video talking about this movie because of how motivated and passionate I was to talk about it, especially in the car driving home after watching it. The movie we were talking about is Disclosure Day. Now, Disclosure Day is the single most motivating movie I've ever seen in my entire life, and not in the way that you think. When you think of the word motivating, you think of like Michael Jordan, like you're a kid, nice, and you watch Michael Jordan on TV, and you're like, oh my God, he's so good at basketball. Wow, I want to be as good as him one day. That's how good you could be. I'm gonna work really hard in the gym. Well, Disclosure Day is like watching the one guy on the basketball court who's so fucking bad, and yet they start him and he plays every minute of every game. Like you watch and you're like, oh wow, like that's how bad. That's like the floor of how good you need to be to play in the NBA. That's what Disclosure Day was. Disclosure Day was the worst movie. This is not hyperbole. This is not an exaggeration. It is the worst movie I have ever seen in my entire life. I left that movie and I immediately started working on my own movie script at home because I watched that movie and thought to myself, I could do that. Do you see the difference in motivation where like you watch Michael Jordan or you watch like a Tarantino movie or a Nolan movie and you don't think like I could do that, but it's motivating in a way that like lifts you up or where you're like, oh my God, wow, that's how good movies could be. Watching Disclosure Days was like, that's currently beneath me. I could currently beat that. In fact, I'll beat it right now. Disclosure Day cost $200 million to make. If you gave me $200 million, I would pocket $150 million of it and then pay Sydney Sweeney and Ana de Armas $25 million apiece to make out with each other for 90 seconds. I wholeheartedly believe that movie, that video would beat this movie. And I just pocketed 150. By the way, if I'm Sydney Sweeney and Ana de Armas, of course I'm gonna fucking take that money. $25 million to make out with some other hot chick, of course you're gonna take that. So I already beat Steven Spielberg. I already made a better movie than him, and I did it for a fucking fraction of the cost. Now let's get into the actual movie. Where are my notes? First off, nothing happens in the first hour. It's a great note. It's true. Basically, you're sitting there and you're kind of dozing off, and then 45 minutes in, some red bird flies in, and she starts talking Russian to it or whatever, and she doesn't even speak Russian. So that's the first time the entire movie that something happens. But for the first hour, you have no idea what's going on, and it's basically like that for the whole movie. Now, keep in mind, I didn't watch the trailer. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, you were confused because you didn't watch the trailer. No, that's not true because, first of all, I think that's a great way to watch movies because then you can't be hyped for it. It just has to be a good movie. You can't, you go in with no expectations. Anyway, I didn't watch the trailer for Project Hail Mary. I went into Project Hail Mary knowing that it was only about space and Ryan Gosling was in it. And then the day I was gonna watch the movie, my dad told me, oh, there's spiders in it, which I fucking hate spiders. Because he read the book, and apparently Rocky in the book is described as like spider-like. It's a rock. Anyway, so I watched Project Hail Mary with no prior knowledge of what it's about other than potentially spiders, space, and Ryan Gosling. And it was one of the best movies I've ever seen, and it made sense. So you can't blame Disclosure Day sucking fat tits on the fact that I didn't watch the trailer because it just sucked tits. Okay, so, right. Going back to it, you see a red bird, and then she speaks Russian to it. It's confusing, but at least it's like you open your eyes now because something finally happened. And then you're hoping, in the next 10 minutes they explain it, right? No, it takes basically another 45 minutes for the next plot point to happen. So by this point, you're what? You're 90 minutes into the movie, and you have two plot points, two things that have raised your eyes from your phone or from sleeping. And that's all you have, right? It still doesn't really make sense, but there are two interesting things that happen. Okay, now we've reached the middle of the movie. And if you're a guy, what is the worst sound ever? Trigger warning. I'm going to give you the worst sound ever. It's, that's the worst sound ever. That's the sound of you're a guy and you're driving and you're like going to get into a minor fender bender, but then you brake and you miss the minor fender bender by 50 feet. But your girlfriend, or your wife, your girlfriend, she's in the passenger seat and she's freaking the fuck out. That's that sound, right? The reason why that's the worst sound ever is because biologically, men are designed to not want to deal with women because, like, imagine you're in the wild and you see a lion. You should be thinking about, okay, I have to defeat this lion or whatever, right? But then your woman is over here freaking the fuck out. So now your attention is split because not only do you have to deal with the lion, but now you have to deal with the woman. So basically, you take that sound, the worst sound that's biologically programmed to be a fucking nuisance in the minds of men. And Steven Spielberg in the writer's room was like, you know what? Why don't we stretch this out for 2.5 minutes and have Emily Blunt have a fucking panic attack that is just nothing but this sound for 2.5 minutes. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, Alex, that's impressive acting to be able to convincingly have a panic attack. Not really. Here you go. That's literally what she did for 2.5 minutes. So it's not good acting, right? Because it's not like you look at that. Fuck, I just made myself lightheaded. It's not like you watch that. Maybe women thought this, where they're like, oh my God, wow, she just had a very convincing panic attack. But from my perspective, all she did was make the worst sound known to man for 2.5 minutes. I've only left a movie in the middle of a movie once in my entire life, and were it not for my brother, this movie would have been the second. It was literally 2.5 minutes of that fucking garbage, and I wanted to leave, but I didn't. And, you know, I guess like you have that like thing in your mind, like, oh, well, okay, like it's an alien movie, it's Spielberg, it cost $200 million to maybe it's worth it to sit through, right? It wasn't. You'd think Spielberg with like E.T., I think he was the E.T. guy, right? In E.T., you're rooting for the alien or the kid or whatever. Like, there's an interesting story. There is no emotional connection to this story whatsoever. There's not really even a story. Even if you knew who to root for, you wouldn't even know what to root for. Like, if I told you, oh, you should be rooting for Emily Blunt, you wouldn't even know like what her side is. So like, it's so confusing. And there was like no story and nothing happened. It was so weird. So now we get to the ending, right? And this is, my guess is like 90% of the people that made it to the ending are in the same boat as me, where you're like, okay, you know what? This sucked shit so far and it didn't make any sense whatsoever, but maybe, right? It's Spielberg, it's an alien movie, it's Emily Blunt, she's a goat. By the way, hold on. I'm not knocking Emily Blunt. She's a great actress. This could be the case of like Skylar in Breaking Bad or Joffrey, where like this definitely brought her down a few pegs in my book because of this performance. That's not to say it was a bad performance. It was just a bad performance, if that makes sense. So she did a good job at having a bad performance. Like, I think it was like Joffrey, where like you read the script and it's like, this is supposed to be a fucking shit performance. You're kind of aloof the whole time. It's really weird. And then you have panic attacks and like you don't make sense. So it was a bad character. She technically did a good job at that. So I'm not saying she did a bad job acting. She did a good job acting on a bad script, but still knocked her down a few pegs. Anyway, so you get to the ending, right? God, this pissed me off so much. You get to the ending, and it's another one of those endings where you feel like you're being preached to, right? Now, if you're in a movie theater, there's nothing worse, aside from maybe like a gorilla breaking in and ass-whipping you. There's nothing worse than feel like you're being preached to. And that's what I believed until I watched this movie, because after watching this movie, what I realized is there is something worse. Somewhere in between ass by a gorilla and feel like you're being preached to in a movie, Disclosure Day is somewhere in the middle, because what they did is they preached to you, but you're not quite sure what the messaging is. Imagine you watch a movie and then you like leave the movie like, okay, you know what? Like, they wanted me to think about recycling, how important it is to recycle, and I need to recycle more. You don't like that there was messaging in a piece of entertainment, but at least you knew what the messaging was. With Disclosure Day, I didn't really know what the messaging was. Now keep in mind, it's been a week since I've seen this, but this is how the movie ended. So it's like, you have here's the climax, right? You finally get to see the aliens. They show you for 14 seconds, and then she gets on global television, looks right at the camera and goes like this. Listen. Cut to black, end of movie. That's it. Now, it felt preachy because she's a newscaster or whatever, but she's looking at you. So it felt like she's talking to you, like she's telling you to listen. And again, I don't know, maybe there was a message. I feel like there might have been, but I remember leaving the movie theater with a bad taste in my mouth because it felt like you were being preached to. But it was about, they were like torturing aliens maybe. So maybe it's about how like you need to listen, like maybe the government's hiding something, or maybe we're torturing. I don't know. It was so weird. Like there was a message there, surely, but it wasn't clear. And they just did like the lowest effort way possible of ending the movie on a way that makes you think. Because it's like if there was something to think about, they go, listen, and then cut to black. So it's like, it's kind of like cloudy so that you have to think about it. It was super low effort. I did not appreciate it. And it's just a super lazy, cheap way to get the audience to go home and think about the movie. Like imagine if I just ended this video by saying one word that makes you think about things we've done in the past or about how you're living your life currently, and then I cut to black, and then that's the fucking cheap way that I get a good ending that makes you think about it. It's stupid, right? That would be a terrible way to end this video. Slavery.